Obviously, with all the excitement about Africa as having many frontier economies and emerging markets, the question is how to capture those investors through captivating concepts, messages and images that make this an enticing investment destination for the continent. These are some of the issues that Brand Africa is going to be tackling as the conference gets underway this week. Thebe Ikalafeng is chairman and founder of Brand Africa. It's always great having you. Thebe, we know that there's Brand South Africa, there's talk of Brand Nigeria, there's definitely Brand Ghana and Kenya. So each country has its own marketing initiatives. The question is, how do they coalesce into something that's Pan-African?
Well, when the rest of the world looks at Africa, they look at us as one big continent, as one African brand. So the important thing is for as countries to be able to find what is it that distinguishes us and what is it that brings us together, so that we are able to go out and produce and deliver an integrated value proposition to the world.
Let's talk about that value proposition to the world. The world already knows there are minerals, there's an untapped consumer market, there's a young population, there's lots of fertile opportunities, but many of them are still reticent. So what is it that we're not telling them, or telling them in a compelling way?
I think what we're not telling them in a compelling way, we are not saying to them we are a country, they're a continent that is ready to do business. I think what they're not seeing how they can tap into that 900 million consumers. They're not seeing how their 2 trillion investment in the continent is going to be magnified. What we need to do as a continent is to be able to communicate those positive messages about the continent, and the messages about productivity, messages about efficiency, messages about stability, and messages about leadership.
I spoke to a brilliant young woman once at a dinner party, and she just said the most amazing thing to me. She said, you can almost understand a country or define a country by an emotion. So she said the United States in the modern day, the defining emotion is fear. If you look at Asia in the modern day, the defining emotion is validation, a need to be seen to be as good enough as the West. When you look at Africa, the defining emotion is hope. I find that quite profound. How do we express that hope in a way that says to investors, come here, bring your money here?
Well, we do that by showing them how the returns of their investment is really magnified in this continent. If you look at what we're doing now, one of the things that we're doing this year more than any other year, we are launching Brand Africa 100, the 100 most valued brands in Africa. And what is inspiring and what's good to see is to see that 33% of the brands which Africans are valuing are global, are African, and only 66%. But if you look at the world's most valuable 100 most valuable brands, none of them are African. So to me, what it says that this is a continent where you can come and build. There's a continent where you can come and create value. And that is a message that we need to go out there that's going to inspire investors, because they want to know that when I come to this continent and I invest in this continent, that we are going to grow. If you look at this continent as well, the continent is growing at anywhere now from 7 to 11. I'm hearing comments in Ghana that Ghana is probably going to grow by 20%. That's a message that investors want to hear. They want to hear that there's opportunity here.
You've just told us a little bit about how you can quantify a brand in terms of the 33 most recognized brands being African brands. What value do we attach to them? Because I know that when you look at Brand South Africa, you can look at the value of the stock exchange, you can look at the credit ratings of the country, you can look at the size and the value of the economy, you can look at issues like GDP per capita to give you a sense of brand equity when you do business in South Africa. How do we do it for the rest of the continent?
When you do it for the continent, obviously there is what Africa lacks right now. They lack the one brand that is dominant across the continent. Of course, you look at MTN is beginning to become that one brand, and there's others like the Standard Banks which are playing in multiple countries. But the way to look at the brand, you have to integrate into it what consumers feel about the brand, and that's why a key measure of this valuation that we've done, TNS have looked at what brands consumers admire across the continent. We've taken as a pilot 9 countries in the continent, 1 or 2 representing each major sub-region countries in sub-Saharan Africa. You look at the admiration score, you look at the premium that consumers are willing to pay for that brand. And if you combine how much money these brands are making, and you integrate the admiration score, you are able to create a score that is based on consumers as well as the financial performance of the brand.
A huge issue coming out is is the youth, and that's an issue that's emerged in various fora, including the Washington summit this week of the World Bank and the IMF. The world is really concerned about how to bring young people into the mainstream economy. Africa in particular is vulnerable because of all the countries in the world. It's on this continent where we have the youngest population. Over 50% of Africans in the near future are going to be people under the age of 25. So the question is the skills, the question is the productivity, the question is youth entrepreneurship, the question is those young people believing in the hope and expressing that hope of the continent.
What we need to do for them, and which is what we're doing at the forum this year as well, is to create a platform and create an opportunity for them to be able to contribute to the discussions about the continent. This year what we're doing, we're bringing kids from African Leadership Academy, bringing kids from Bright Young Minds, we're bringing kids from One Young World, and all of them represent the age from 17 to 20, 25, and we're asking them, what is your vision of Africa? What do we need to do to drive the continent forward? Because last year when we discussed these issues about Africa, a young 21-year-old stood up and says, all of you are going to be dead. What's the point of talking about Africa? You should be speaking to us.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. And as you rightly said, 2/3 of them are under the age of 25.
Yeah.
And we are referring to them as the lost generation. Rather, what we need to be doing is to refer to them as the opportunity generation, the future generation, and give them the skills and give them an opportunity to contribute to the agenda for Africa.
Word. Thanks so much, Thebe Ikalafeng, who's the founder of Brand Africa. It's time for us to get our weekly look at what's making headlines in neighboring